What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Emerson Lazio holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show for you guys today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern right here on DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and more. You can also catch the best of GoJo and Golic every day from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio. Fun one today, Rex Chapman, former Kentucky hoop star and NBA star, stopping by. Going to talk about his new book that's coming out right now, relive some very, painful memories for him about the path that his life went, the substance and gambling issues that he had later in his life, and how he's trying to turn it all around now to be the best version of himself. Levante David, also free agent NFL linebacker, been one of the best in the business for a while, was a huge part of that Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl team. He's going to stop by and talk about his free agent journey right now. I'm sure reminisce a little bit about what's going on with the NFL Combine that we'll certainly get to, as well as we had guys on the field doing drills yesterday and had a couple of full-blown googly eyes moments as some of the best athletes on the planet did really great athlete things. But Dad, if we're going to talk about that, we got to start with this Wemby game. And I'm trying to see if we can get Wemby to stick for the Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama matchups between Oklahoma City and the San Antonio Spurs. I feel like Wemby's got real potential, and that's because the first time around, remember, what do you guys think of Wemby, first off? How does that land for you? You guys are both, I debuted it for the first time for you.
Wemby sounds like something I would read about on Urban Dictionary. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't sound appropriate.
I actually kind of like it because it's easy, because you can't really go the other way, right? You can't start it with Wemby. I don't know how you would finish that one. So Wemby, I think Wemby is the way to go. I think it's a pretty good one. Well done. And it should start with Wemby, though, for what he did last night.
It should, because that was a game where you looked up early and Chet had actually gotten out to a pretty strong start. I think he had 11 points in the first quarter. And then after that, the game sort of turned, and listen, this is twofold. The Spurs got a big-time win, 132-118, over an Oklahoma City team that's vying for one of the top seeds in the Western Conference right now, has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been an MVP candidate, but Chet Holmgren and Wemby, we know, have been going back and forth for Rookie of the Year, and Dad, the way that Victor Wembanyama punctuated this one last night in a game where he finished with 28 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks, including 5 made 3-pointers, and 2 back-to-back in the final 3.5 minutes of this game to help put this on ice. Dad, I think the crowning moment of this game, though, is late in the game. You've got Victor Wembanyama jumping out to block a Chet Holmgren jump shot at the top of the key. This image of Chet Holmgren, who was a 7-foot-tall unicorn in his own right, who a year before, when we knew nothing about Victor Wembanyama, felt like the future of the sport. And here comes this pterodactyl man who all of a sudden seems much more aware of his body, in control of his game, and starting to get towards what looks like the beginning of the height of his powers, just sending it back to the student section. That's one of those nights, Dad, where, and I think a string of moments where we're seeing the Victor Wembanyama era in the NBA is very close to being at hand, and this dude might be everything we ever hoped he could be and more.
Yeah, I mean, he's just fun watching because he's a unicorn. I mean, just seeing what he can do at that size is amazing. And as far as the Chemby situation, this was their third matchup this year. The first one really kind of that feeling out, right? I think Wemby had 8 points and Chet had 9 points in that game. Second game, Wemby had 24, Chet had 17. This one, as you mentioned, Wemby had the 28 points and Chet had 23 points. So getting better. The biggest thing team-wise is Oklahoma City won the first 2 games. San Antonio won this game. And you look at from the team aspect, and you see now Denver just a half game away from Oklahoma City for that number 2 slot. And both just basically a game and a half away from Minnesota for the number 1 slot. So from a team aspect, that is going to be a fun race, as we've already talked about after the All-Star break, to see finish up. But I'm with you on Wemby, and I just hope that they can build a good team around him, because it's great to watch these matchups, especially the size matchup. And I'm with you, even after the points, it was that block at the end to help seal the deal. I just hope this team can become a competitive team. Right now, obviously, they're not 12 wins on the year. Had that, had losing streaks all throughout this year. So can they build, or how long is it going to be, I guess, until we're just watching them to see what Wemby does, or watching them to see what Wemby does and to see where he can lead his team in the Western Conference?
Yeah, because, Junior, I was going to say it's one thing to put up stats on like a cellar dweller here, but Holmgren has fit seamlessly into and has indeed helped fuel this legitimate championship contender. And I still think it's going to take a Herculean effort for Holmgren to wrestle Rookie of the Year away from Wembanyama. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I don't think anybody out there should be distracted from the fact that both of these like rookie supernovas here are having seasons for the ages.
They are, but I guess the thing I would challenge, and the reason I'm confused, Dad, here by your refrain of, well, let's hope, is the Spurs have a pretty good history of being able to build up quality teams around their stars. Like, this isn't some fledgling organization that struggled with this in the past, and so I feel pretty confident in saying, they've got a good enough track record of building up quality teams when presented, especially with star bigs, combined with the fact that everything Wemby's doing, like, you're right, we always get nervous about stat stuffers on bad teams. I would challenge anyone to show me what part of his game does not translate to being on a more competitive roster, especially the things that he can just do naturally defensively, because he's a 7'4" tall pterodactyl man.
I agree with everything you're saying, but I'll wait and see. I know Greg Popovich and the Spurs have done this in the past, but Greg Popovich is way closer to the end of his coaching career than the middle or the beginning of his coaching career. So can they do this again while he's there? And if he's not there, can the next person do it? So I know he's done it in the past, but just because you did it in the past, you want to give him the benefit of the doubt he's going to do it again? Okay. I'm kind of going to wait and see, because the reason I'm going to wait and see is because Popovich, as I said, I think is closer to the end, and I don't know about the time factor in building this team up.
Dad, I'm going to give you about 2 more weeks. I'm going to give you about 2 more weeks to see if you want to join Wemby Island. And if you don't, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the doors to Wemby Island. Remember at the beginning of the Patrick Mahomes era in Kansas City when you doubted, and then all of a sudden on the back half of that, you had to live with your take for the rest of your life now. Do you really want, is this where you want to be when Jesus comes back, doubting that Victor Wembanyama will bring and usher in the return of the Spurs?
I don't doubt Wemby and his talents, like I question putting Mahomes in, over Alex Smith right in the beginning. I'm not questioning Wemby and what he does. He is going to be a star. I'm questioning what's going to happen on the Riverwalk. Are they going to be able to build that team there in San Antonio? And I don't know. I will, if you want to lean toward giving them the benefit of the doubt because they've done it, I understand that. But it's been a while, been a bit, hadn't it? Been a bit since we talked about them, and that's where I'm going. It's great, and that's the beauty also about the NBA is you can enjoy watching a singular superstar on a team. It is fun to watch, but I wonder if this team will be able to build competitively around him.
Oh, I mean, you know how this will go, though, if they're not competitive for very long or they don't get to postseason reps soon, is we're going to come for him. That's how this works. We don't allow NBA superstars, maybe sans what we did for Dame Lillard for almost a decade, to just exist in their ecosystem and be quality players. And I mean, God, with Wemby, it's the coolest part with him is he seems to get it. Like we talk about so many young guys who are trying to figure out who they are or trying to figure out how to be leaders and stars, and they have so much asked of them. And Wemby's this, 20-year-old sensation who's walking in here and after the game quoting Kobe Bryant when he's being interviewed. He's on the mic thanking the home San Antonio crowd and leading cheers with them while David Robinson looks on like a proud parent. Like he just seems to have internalized so much of the game that vets want to give him early on, that having a guy who that is also like intrinsically motivated, is talked about around the All-Star break. Hey, we're not winning games right now. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, so none of this really matters. All of that just seems to be the kind of thing that's a legitimate, and it's not even saying, like I say, I'm going to say culture changer, knowing full well what I just said. The San Antonio Spurs are not a place that we associate with a bad basketball culture, but that kind of work ethic from your star player and that kind of attitude, if it's truly what we get behind closed doors with him, is the kind of stuff that makes all-time greats. Like this guy was said best prospect since LeBron James. And right now, based on what we're seeing, I had my doubts about that early on. Those doubts are erased. I get it. I get what everyone was talking about here because this is just stuff you don't see.
I agree. I agree with everything you said individually about Wemby. I absolutely agree. All I'll say is for San Antonio, you know what goes on. The clock is ticking, right? The clock is ticking.
Man, all right, your doubts. Listen, you got 2 more weeks. Then I'm closing the doors to Wemby Island. I'm closing them. them.
Okay. I'm on Wemby Island. I don't know if I'm on San Antonio's Riverwalk. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, man. You can get in trouble on that Riverwalk.
San Antonio, I love the Riverwalk. It's great.
I do too.
You know what? You're getting very close to Charles Barkley territory with your San Antonio slander right now. Getting very close, bud.
No, your dad's a much better golfer. Your dad's a much better golfer.
He does love churros, though. I will say that. You know who else loves churros? The big fellas that were on the mat in Indianapolis yesterday at the Combine. Speaking of your boy Pat Mahomes' dad, they did him so dirty at the Combine yesterday. Man. Pat Mahomes gets on Twitter, and he's the best player in the NFL. He's rocking back-to-back Super Bowls. The guys, you want to talk about a young superstar who understands and plays the game the right way in terms of how he leads, how he conducts himself in front of the media, all that stuff. And Pat Mahomes went on Twitter with one simple request. Hey, Combine, I've done a lot. Hey, NFL Network, I've been great for this league. Can you guys just stop showing my slow 40 time and using it to overlay with faster big people who are outrunning me? And so, of course, like any good troll of producers do, the NFL media truck immediately started putting up Patrick Mahomes, especially right next to, it was, I believe, the D lineman from Texas Tech, Miles Cole, who went out there and outran Patrick Mahomes at, I believe, 278 pounds yesterday. And Mahomes had to watch in real time as the Combine just took his words and used them against him. So that's a tough scene right there, Dad, where you have that for him and then Tom Brady actually running a faster 40 than he ran at his Combine now at 40 whatever years old he is.
Yeah, I think 45, 46. He ran a faster 40 than he did when he was at the NFL Combine back in '99. And he said he's going to run it faster again next year. Kudos to him. The man there ain't no doubt he's aging like a fine wine for sure. But some of these young guys, man,
energy.
Well, I mean, athletes now, Mike, I mean, with their size and their speed, again, I don't know how much, again, what we talk about putting into the combine, but watching these athletes perform is pretty impressive.
Oh, yesterday was a good reminder of why the combine works, because at some point, watching freaks do freaky things always going to be box office. I've said I come to sports, and everyone's got different reasons they watch sports. But I have always said I came to sports to watch people that were bigger and faster than I could ever imagine do things on the field, court, or ice that I could never comprehend. And yesterday fell into that category with some of the guys that we saw out there. Dad, was there anyone that stuck out to you in particular of the combine performances yesterday as we were all sitting around and mainlining this thing?
Well, I mean, you look at it, my former position, though, going into the NFL at D tackle, Brandon Fisk, the kid from Florida State. I mean, forgetting the 40 time, I know we'll look at the 40 time, but I don't care about the 40 time for an O lineman or a D lineman. I don't care. I saw him, when I saw him get off, I was sitting here. No, the 4.78, listen, phenomenal stuff. But more importantly to me, when he took off, I was sitting there with your mother and I was like, oh man, shot out of a cannon. And that to me is the most important thing. Give me the 10. Give me how quickly you get to the 10, which means how quick are you getting off the ball? And that's what this guy is going to be able to do with that 3 technique, is create, penetration into the backfield. And he's quick, and that's what mattered to me. Again, the 40 is cool, the 40, the vert, all that basically whatever you want to say about it says, okay, I can see that translating onto the field with what he does. Because when we saw Jordan Davis, the big dude from Georgia who went to Philly, he ran that fast 40, but we had seen that in his play. We had seen his get off in the play, how well he could do. And I'm more concerned, like I said, in that 10 area of what he did. And when I saw him take off, man, I thought, and then do the drills, he's got some quick feet. So for a guy that size, I think it was a little over 290, a little under 295, to move that way was pretty damn impressive.
I just think the cool part about yesterday, at least, and this is the first group of guys that were on the field, and the defensive linemen and the linebackers, is so much of what we saw on the field matched what we saw on the actual field from these guys when they were playing ball in college, right? We talked the other day and said, hey, Peyton Wilson, linebacker out of NC State, going to be a fun 40-yard dash because he's like the Terminator hawking dudes down on the field, and sure enough, runs the fastest 40 time among linebackers with a 4.43. We talked about Chop Robinson from Penn State, one of their great edge rushers in a defense that just seemed to be built fully of edge rushers. We remember the Michigan game where they had to completely alter their game plan because in the first few plays of the game, these guys were wrecking it, and Chop Robinson has the top 5 in the 40, the broad jump, and the shuttle, including a 40-yard dash time of 4.48. At his size, you've got all these dudes that have gone out there and seem to live up to the hype. But Dad, we talked about the odd couple out of Texas, and man, watching these dudes cook, and Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, both let me tell you what, Byron Murphy might have been the single most impressive dude in terms of going out there and just underwear Olympicsing this thing, where the eye test is like, wait a minute, this dude looks linebacker jacked and appears to move that well, but he's almost a 300-pound defensive tackle. Damn. That guy looked like DT1 out there yesterday and had looked like DT1 on tape all fall.
Well, and a lot because the kid, I'm drawing a blank on his name, the kid from Illinois, is it Newton? Johnny Newton, who isn't participating in any of the drills. So this, they say, gave this chance now to Byron to try and take over that spot. Again, you're not taking over something because of what you did in shorts and a T-shirt. But that doesn't take away from how well prepared they are, to come out and do what they do. It just, every year, Mike, guys, this size to move the way they do is just amazing to me. But I just hate reading lines after about a player. I could certainly see him getting drafted higher than expected after a good night in Indy. I mean, no. I mean, a good night in Indy makes you go back and watch tape again. You had a guy who looked real. What about a guy who looks really good on tape? I was reading about someone, an edge rusher, I think it was Austin Booker from Kansas, whose 40 didn't match his speed on the field. And people are starting to head scratch a little bit. Why? Why would you head that? This is the part that gets me, Mike, is you see him do it on the field because he doesn't have a straight line 40 time. Now you're going to question what you saw on the field. That's the stuff I don't understand about the combine.
Yeah, I think I can understand looking at an overall athletic profile and saying when you put it all together, if a guy's not very explosive and not very fast, and you see him playing well, but he's doing it against competition that's a little bit further down the rung, and you have questions about, well, what's he going to do when pressed against better athletes? And is this a way that we can start to pry and project that? I can understand that, but Dad, I think the thing that you pointed to is what people do go back to is when they say, oh, he could go higher than expected now, it's because people are going to go back and see, hey, did I miss something? In the evaluation of this prospect here, did I see everything? Was I as cued in on this particular guy as I needed to be? Or is there something else that I need to go back and try and find to see if it matches this eye-popping display of athleticism? Right. I think it was Mike Mayock that used to say that all the time, is you'd hear him covering the combine and he would just go, well, I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape again after seeing what he saw. So I think these are all just arrows that point you back towards the main glut of your evaluation. They're just really fun, very fast arrows, and I'd be remiss if I didn't get this one in. The funnest and fastest arrow from yesterday that should signal a shift in the way we're thinking about drafting linebackers. Did you hear this nugget from Daniel Jeremiah yesterday, Dad?
No.
They were talking about the linebackers, and Edefuan Ulofoshio, the linebacker out of Washington, his name means not afraid of war. If you're an NFL team, that is what you've always wanted from your linebacker, a man who is literally, quite literally, not afraid of war. So good luck to everyone else in draft season trying to top that nugget from the group that we saw yesterday. We'll get to the group that's coming up this weekend here next on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Dad, as combine season and combine brain is now fully in effect, I was amazed yesterday. I was wondering how we were going to evolve the quarterback debate because we've spun it around so many times already.
Yeah.
And with a group of quarterbacks as tantalizing as this one has been, and with all the questions about Caleb Williams and would he, won't he to Chicago going number one, and Drake May and his place in all of this, as we've talked about them as 1A, 1B, I didn't know where we'd go next. And then I saw our buddy Dan Orlovsky, ESPN NFL analyst, go on Get Up the other day and say he would actually take Jayden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner out of LSU, number one overall, said that he has the best balls versus man coverage, said that what he's done as a dual threat guy there, what he does from a clean pocket, all these reasons that he gave. And the one thing we know is Dan Orlovsky's doing the work. Like, Dan's not just saying this out of nowhere. He watches the tape. He watches as much as anybody and goes through it and is clearly fallen into this place with Jayden Daniels that we've seen others, right? We've seen him matriculating up draft boards. Field Yates came on with us and had him going ahead of Drake May in a way that surprised me in his first mock draft. So what have you made of this rise postseason of Jayden Daniels up draft board so far, Dad?
Well, I mean, look at just about any mock draft, and God knows there's a lot of them out there. I think the higher percentage now has Jayden Daniels going ahead of Drake May, has him going second to the Commanders. I don't think Jayden's going to go number one. Listen, it is. I mean, to look at what he does in the landscape of today's NFL, I mean, how could your mouth not be watering for the fact that he throws the ball well and his elusiveness running the ball? I mean, this is a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, you know, as far as his ability to escape and be unbelievably dangerous with his legs. I remember we were watching him, Mike, as a freshman at Arizona State. You know, the skinny little kid. Now, it's not like he's packed on tons of pounds either. You know, he's still not the biggest guy in the world, but man, can he move and can he throw? I don't think it's going to change. I think Caleb will go number one, but I see just about everybody now put him over Drake May, more the pocket guy. Can certainly hurt you with his legs for sure. The biggest of the quarterbacks we're talking about. Both throw Drake May and Jayden throw a nice deep ball, nice touch on their deep ball for sure. But all the analysts who are breaking down, and again, it's a lot of times it's when they do a mock draft, it's who they think the team should take or who they think the team is going to take. But I see a lot now that say Jayden Daniels going second to Washington. And listen, the grades are going to be close for all three of these guys, right? Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and Drake May. Depends on your offense, depends on your coordinator, depends on what kind of, you know this better than anybody, what kind of offense you're going to run, what fits better. I still say, you know, that marriage of Luke Getsy and Justin Fields just didn't work in the pros for the Bears. So you have to see what that relationship is going to be like. And then you have your grade and you take your shot if you have the chance for him. And then let's be honest, you hope a little bit because you know not all five quarterbacks in the first round are going to make it. You know, 2 to 3 are going to be busts.
It's interesting with Daniels, and we had some of this conversation last year around Bryce Young, is the outliers in terms of their physical profile. I saw Nate Tice over at Yahoo Sports wrote a great article breaking down Jayden Daniels as a prospect and talked about he might weigh under 205 pounds. It's going to be interesting what he clocks in at there.
Right.
But as Nate pointed out, the list of quarterbacks that have succeeded in the NFL under that weight have been pretty short. Since 2000, there have been 5 quarterbacks under 205 pounds that have a single season starting 14 or more games. That's the only threshold. They've even started 14 or more games in a season. It's Aaron Brooks, Kirk Cousins, Doug Flutie, Jeff Garcia, and Bryce Young, who is the only first-round pick to do so, by the way, and did it just last year. And so there is not a long history, and that's what we talk about with the combine and a lot of these measurables is looking for historical outliers, and that's what Jayden Daniels at this weight would be. And given his play style, Dad, that's the part that worries me. Is you're right with all the gifts. He is reckless and careless with his body.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something at this point because he's also mature in his football career. You mentioned he's played a lot of ball. Like, this isn't some guy you're taking a risk on talent and hoping it develops. This is a guy who's a multi-year starter at the big-time college football level who still, even this last year, could not be bothered to take care of his body. And so I hope for his sake that improves because if not, he's going to run into a group of bigger, faster, stronger athletes that are going to break him in half.
Yeah, he is. But remember, we talked about this with Lamar when he's gotten hurt. Lamar has gotten hurt in the pocket, not when he's been running. So you can be careless given your situation when you're so much better athlete than everybody else. Now, Lamar is proving he's just, even on a higher level when he takes off and run as well.
He's also a lot bigger than Jayden was.
He is. Yes, he is. Jayden is either going to learn the easy way or the hard way, right? On what to do and what you can get away with in the NFL. And a lot of times a guy is going to go with what he's normally done, and that's to try and make the play and if he's a reckless guy, to continue to be reckless until that can be coached out of him. Or quite honestly, you take that hit one time, you get up and your eyes are watering and your nose bleeds and you go, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this as much anymore. I can still do damage, without being reckless. So that's going to be a big thing, is his ability to learn the difference of when to get the extra yards, when to hit the ground, when to run out of bounds.
He's going to have to learn that in a hurry, especially if he's going to get taken in this tax bracket. Again, I said top 3 would be too rich for my taste, but apparently that's not rich enough for some people. Dad, what about the guys we're going to see up to date, tight ends and defensive backs coming up here pretty soon on Friday? You've got Brock Bowers as the headliner for this class, and I think a healthy debate now about how high a guy like Brock Bowers go, Dad. When you've seen the conversation around tight end, how comfortable would you be taking Brock Bowers in the top 10 of this draft if you're a team?
Well, I mean, look at what tight ends can do, the better tight ends. Forgetting even talking about, a future Hall of Famer in Travis Kelce and George Kittle, who was actually the All-Pro this year, had the year. But those are arguably the two best, but we've seen other really good tight ends. But look at the impact, Mike, of two of the rookie tight ends, and we mentioned before, Dalton in Buffalo and Sam Laporta. It was a huge part of this team of Detroit making the rise that they're making in the NFL, set all kind of rookie records at that tight end position. They're such a weapon now. And this guy is a receiving tight end. I'll be interested to see his weight. He's 230 can he touch 240, or is he in the 230s? But this was a guy right out of the gate was so incorporated into that Georgia game plan, whether, as I said, he was attached, slot, or out at a wide receiver. So he has all those elements. He has every single tool that you need, say for, we're not going to ask a high picked tight end to come in and be this massive blocker. It's just not really going to happen. We see what George Kittle does. I get it. George Kittle's an animal blocker, that Iowa blood there. So I'm not worried about that. But I think, Mike, if you have that need there, this guy can be a game changer on your offensive side of the ball, especially if you have threats on the outside of wide receiver, what he can do to the middle of the field. This guy is that slashy wide receiver tight end. I think he'd be a monstrous for a team.
He said a few weeks ago, Junior, that he would prefer to play for the Titans. He was asked, where would you like to play? He said Tennessee, 7th overall pick there.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's got too many other needs, especially at premium positions along the offensive line and defense. That's probably, and that's going to be the issue is forgetting even, because I've seen Daniel Jeremiah, who does a great job, Move the Sticks podcast, talked about positional value based on the top dollars paid to veteran tight ends versus what you have to pay a first rounder. You don't get the same savings you get at other positions, but you're still trying to pay for future services render. You're trying to pay for if he blows up and turns into Travis Kelce, but there's also the need factor of this, and tight end is not one of those foundational positions in the same way that tackle and quarterback and defensive back necessarily are. I've always thought in that range around Seattle at 16, Cincinnati at 18 of teams that could absorb him in a way that really helps, because like Dad, you said, to your point, this has an argument to be the most accomplished tight end in the history of modern football. Yeah. He's the first ever back-to-back Mackey Award winner for the best tight end in college football. He is one of 3 players in Georgia football history to be a 3-time first-team All-American. It's him, David Pollock, and Herschel Bleeping Walker as the 3 players with that distinction in Georgia football history. So he's going to come in and make an impact. It's just a matter of where you are as a team, and do you have other needs in a draft that's rich in wide receiver talent, quarterback, and tackle. I think that unfortunately pushes a great player a little bit further down than we'd expect.
All right, one of the best parts of the scouting combine, it gives prospects here the chance to speak their voice for better or for worse. So, GoJo, on Thursday, and as the first group of players hit the field for evaluation in Indianapolis, we have two prospects, not one but two, really turning heads here after unleashing some wild conspiracy theories during interviews. So first, you have Illinois tight end Tip Bryman revealing that he is a living, breathing member of the Birds Are Not Real movement, asking reporters questions like, have you ever seen a baby pigeon? Okay, so Tip may just be playing along here because the whole Birds Aren't Real movement is this sarcastic take on conspiracy theories. And then there's also Texas Tech defensive back Tyler Owens, who told Bleacher Report, I do not believe in space. I don't think there's like other planets and stuff like that. He then went on to say, flat earth theories have some valid points. Tell me this, which one are you more on board with, GoJo?
Oh, way more on board with Birds Aren't Real.
Yes.
Like, I know you spent all morning looking up baby pigeon pictures and talking about pigeon milk and how they're monogamous partners and all that.
Yes,
so
yep.
You can unload those at any time, but I've seen the other planets enough to feel pretty confident in their existence. But I will say, this is exactly the kind of this is like a reminder that this is all dating, right? The combine, the NFL draft, it's all dating, and it's about the red flags that you're willing to ignore. Because the other thing about Texas Tech defensive back Tyler Owens is he's like a 10-200 meters guy who's at 218 pounds, expected to, I think, run like in the 4.2s in terms of his 40. And so if he does that, everyone's going to be looking the other way on all this weird stuff he said about outer space, going, listen, I don't need you to work in that space. I need you to work in the space in the defensive backfield. And if you can do that really fast, I will ignore all of this nonsense.
Well, that's the thing. Can either one of these guys put up numbers that make you forget about what they said? And what I'm not going to lie, this could be another Golic Senior versus the internet.
Yeah.
Is there a theory out there of birds aren't real? I mean, I've never heard of that in my life.
Okay,
now
so
this is something.
So here we go, Senior. The Birds Aren't Real movement claims that birds were once real but have now been replaced by drones. That was back in 2001. The new robot birds are used to monitor Americans. This was first conceived by a college student in 2017. The conspiracy theory claims that in the 1950s, the CIA was faced with two problems: how to survey and keep an eye on the entire U.S. population, and how to stop birds pooping on their fancy CIA cars.
Okay, I mean, this seems to me like the younger generation who thinks this just has too much time on their hands.
It's true.
I'm not going to lie. I've never heard that one before in my life. I'm not even going to sit here and comment. I don't care what he thinks, because I think he's wrong. He can think he's right. But what a waste of breath to have a debate about it, quite honestly. Same with the planets. I mean, there's one thing to be a flat earther. There's another thing to think there's nothing in space. There's nothing in the universe but us, is one of the most, in my opinion, ridiculous thoughts there can be. But again, have your opinion. Do whatever you want. I mean, have it, because I'm not going to get in a debate on it. I got a lot better thing. I got a lot better, streaming shows on Netflix to watch than to get into some debate on whether there's planets or not.
Before I texted you that picture of a baby pigeon this morning, though, have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
Have I?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't recall in all my time that I saw one or needed to see one to validate the existence of birds.
Okay, big man. Okay, bucko.
No, just stop it. Both of you, stop it.
Just asking the question. What I appreciated most from Tyler Owens is that he just did the one thing. You threw in one smart word to validate your entire argument. And I think he mentioned heliocentric, the idea of like the heliocentric theory that the earth revolved around the sun. And he talked about that before he said, then I read some of the flat earth stuff and they made some valid points. Once you introduce a word like that, most people are going to go, oh, this guy might know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Heliocentric.
Yeah, we're not big. We're not big on big words here on this show.
No.
You know what we are big on? Big men and big prospects.
Yeah.
So, Dad, we've got the rest of the weekend in the combine coming up right now. We've got tight ends and defensive backs. We've got the quarterbacks, receivers, and backs coming up. We're going to have offensive linemen on Sunday. So I'm going to give you the whole weekend of combine viewing as we all park our asses firmly in seats to watch these hosses do work. Which group are you most excited about? And are there a couple of prospects you're jacked up to see go run around in their underwear?
Well, for me, it would be the O-lineman on Sunday, just like yesterday. I love watching big guys move, right? I mean, that's just, we've covered a lot of these guys playing, but then to see them in this underwear Olympics, to see them move is really an amazing thing. So I'm always more amazed at the bigger guys and what they can do. Quarterbacks, listen, we know that what Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jayden Daniels aren't throwing here. So it gives the likes of J.J. McCarthy and Penix and Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler a chance to be looked at. I wonder who has a bigger medical eval to give the doctors, Michael Penix or Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, from the injury side, and the doctors looking at them. That will be an interesting one as well. As far as a prospect, Mike, I'm going to go to Notre Dame, Audric Estime. I'm really curious as to this guy just absolutely exploded onto the scene in college football this year. Just a huge, big-time, big, strong, fast running back. Nothing like seeing a guy bigger than you run away from you when he hits the open field. And Estime has done that. So you know he's going to be ready to go for this, as most guys are. As I said, this is their interview. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this physical specimen does with these drills.
I am so excited for and the NFL is kind of meeting, like every year watching draft Twitter and draft reporters meet our sweet children from the college football ranks is always a joy. And to see the reception that Audric's already gotten from so many people, he's a thick McRunfast. Nothing that big should move that well. The first play of the NC State game post rain delay, when he pops a counter and takes it to the house like 65 yards, you saw speed that should not exist for a guy that's probably going to be above 230 pounds. Legit Jerome Bettis vibes coming out of the big back from South Bend. And so I have been trying to form a little prayer circle as we have seen the Baltimore Ravens, knowing that J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are free agents right now. They've got Keaton Mitchell as lightning in the backfield. Bring in the thunder. I want to see Audric Estime wearing purple and black, and that is what I will continue to will into the universe. Dad, I'm glad you mentioned the beef on Sunday, though. Sweet Christ, do we have a fun group of offensive linemen coming up in this draft right now. Obviously, the headliners are boy Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, who is OT1 for me.
Yep.
I think he is the perfect combination of insane physical gifts. I want to see his measurements. The wingspan shows up on tape. The height, when you see him in person, he's just so broad and hard to get around, but also incredibly technically sound. He's really strong. He can do a better job getting some pop out of the hips, but overall, everything you love there. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, one of the most gifted athletes in this draft. His lower body power is insane. He's a Mack truck. But man, there's a couple of guys in here that are fascinating to me in terms of what they could do at other positions. Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State, the right tackle from there, certified road grader. One of the cleanest technical prospects in the draft. If you kick him down to guard, you might have a guy that's like a future Pro Bowler. Like, he could be that good. He's I think like 6'6", 332 pounds coming out right now. So there's an incredible group of gazelles on the perimeter that I think are going to have a chance to come in and impact these groups pretty early on.
Yeah, I really like watching these guys move, especially the tackles with their hands and their feet. And Joe Alt, again, makes me feel old because I played against his dad. And his dad was 6'8". Dad was 6'8", right around 300. So their bodies are similar. I think Joe is 6'7". But yeah, the dad, I played against him when he was with the Chiefs. So, I mean, and to go and watch this kid do what he's doing, he's got just what you need on the outside, hands and feet. But again, watching large individuals do things they do at the size they're at is impressive to me. So that's why, and they moved O-line to Sunday this year. I don't think the ratings have been great on Sunday, and I know they flip it every now and then. So they moved the O-line to Sunday, and everybody loves watching the O-lineman. So that'll get a good rating.
Yeah, you hear that, America? Beef rates. Football's a very simple game at its core. I've always said this. It's why the thick six, an offensive or defensive line touchdown, is such a beautiful thing, because at its core, football's about getting your best athletes the ball in space. And all we're going to do on Sunday is give some of the best athletes on the planet a whole lot of space to go and paint their masterpiece in front of everybody in Indianapolis. God bless you, large boys.
Well, we all knew this day was coming. I know Iowa fans were hoping it would be another year from now, but basketball star Caitlyn Clark, the phenom who has overtaken the sport in America and the world, announcing yesterday, guys, that she is declaring for the WNBA draft, making the announcement with one game remaining on the regular season schedule and weeks after breaking the NCAA women's scoring record here. Likely bound for Indiana, the Fever holding that number one pick in April's draft here, GoJo. And by the way, the ticket for her last game this weekend, I think it's the most expensive ever for women's basketball.
Yeah, that's been kind of the standard for her, is every time a new ticket goes up for her, it breaks the old record. And shout out to the Indiana Fever, by the way. As soon as this announcement went up, so did their season ticket sale promotion on Twitter. That's playing the game the right way. Chestnut checkers, getting butts in seats. But, Dad, obviously this was something most of us figured was coming for a woman that's expected to be the number one overall pick in the draft, and it comes with all of this fanfare around her. I was amazed how quickly we have still devolved in the public conversation. I shouldn't say we. Darren Ravel made the tweet that ultimately got everyone fired up yesterday with that common refrain that we've heard surrounding Caitlyn Clark and the conversation about her going to the next level. I think might have been Mike Wilbon on PTI might have thrown something out like this too. I don't want to put the words in his mouth, so maybe I'll throw that away. But this idea that Caitlyn Clark, as Darren Ravel put it, is getting ready to take a $750,000 pay cut as she goes to the next level. Dad, this has persisted in the face of concrete information that's been reported about Caitlyn Clark and the nature of what she makes in college. I know we live in a day and age where it is confusing when you hear NIL in college and what that actually entails for a lot of people. Because it started off with, what you could make advertising for a local car dealership or doing a commercial. And then it morphed into these collectives that are pseudo pay for play. And I get it's very confusing. So we can state this pretty clearly. The reporting around Caitlyn Clark has indicated for a while the money she is making in NIL is without taking a single dollar from their collective. I believe it was because she wanted that collective to be able to give money to other players on her team, because she's making high six figures from all the different brand deals that you've seen her as a part of. You've seen her as a part of national ads with all variety of different people that are still going to want to pay her money to represent her product when she's playing professional basketball as opposed to college basketball. And Dad, this framework is used as a way to be demeaning to the WNBA, where she's not going to make a base salary that's as high as her NBA counterparts. Everybody knows that, but she also doesn't become unmarketable as soon as she steps foot off a college basketball court, and I think that's part of the reason that's been so frustrating for so many people.
Darren putting her deals as her salary and comparing that to what the top 4 picks make in the WNBA draft this year. The first year, they'll make a $76,000 base and then a $78,000 base. But to your point, there are 11 different companies that she represents to make over $900,000. It's not like those are going away. As you said, none of those have to do with the collective for Iowa. It's companies that are using her, that are going to continue to use her name, image, and likeness, and she'll make this money when she's in the WNBA as well. So I'm with you. I mean, she is making money now, and she's going to make even more money, and she's going to have even more sponsors because she is it right now. And how great is it for the Fever to be able to get her? That's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from her crazy fans there in Iowa to drive up. I mean, it couldn't be set up better for the Indiana Fever and the WNBA, where Caitlyn Clark's going to go.
Yeah, those fans traveled to Seattle and Dallas to see Clark lead Iowa's magical run over the years here, dudes. And the league has already recognized too this week, talking to the WNBA, that it should lean into Clark mania sooner rather than later. It also announced on Wednesday, guys, that for the first time since 2016, the draft is going to be held with fans in attendance.
You're right, and it feels like Curry Mania, right? The people showing up to watch her warm up and getting there earlier, and it's absolutely right to capitalize. It puts a ton of pressure and a bullseye on her walking right into the league, where I'm sure veteran players are all going to look and say, we're not going to let this rookie come in and get over on us. But I do think the 30,000-foot view is this is a rising tide that can help continue to lift what's been a rising ship in the WNBA, something that's been able to draft off the popularity of the names and stars involved with with a couple of the super teams that we've talked about extensively in Las Vegas and in New York. And just the idea that, again, the whole framework of this is to try and make the WNBA seem lesser. That's what people like Darren do with comments like this, is try and make it seem like, oh, well, she's going to this lesser model. Well, no. She's still going to be insanely popular. The women in this league are still going to be insanely popular and still going to make the money she was making at the college level. It doesn't just end that day. But again, it's improper framework. It's disingenuous. And I'd expect someone like Darren Ravel to know a lot better than he's displayed so far.
Yep, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Listen, it's Caitlyn Clark's world right now. We're all just orbiting around it as she leaves college basketball after this year. And Mike, one of our own at Notre Dame, is making an incredible start to her college career. Hannah Hidalgo, the freshman guard from Notre Dame. Notre Dame just number 17, knocked off number 5. What was it, Virginia Tech, I believe. And she's the leading scorer in the ACC. She's the third leading scorer in the country, behind Caitlyn Clark and Juju Watkins from USC, who another freshman who's having a monster season as well, and then Hannah Hidalgo. So it has been really impressive what she has done, and mentioning Juju and now Hannah as two young ladies who are up and coming and will continue on in college.
We have had so many stars in college basketball in the last few years on the women's side. But you're right. As we're getting ready for this void, as some of the best are going to graduate out and go on to the W, where you can still watch and play basketball, really high-level basketball. Right. They don't end there as much as people would like you to believe. But if you're looking for who's got next at the NCAA level, my brothers and sisters in Christ, Hannah Hidalgo is a dog. She has been a full-blown dog. You could argue Notre Dame walked into this season missing their best player. Olivia Miles is still dealing with the remnants of an injury from seasons prior. They interviewed her on the sideline of last game. They're not going to get her back until next year, it looks like. And when they do, buddy, watch out for the Irish, because Hannah Hidalgo, you're right, Dad, had already set the Notre Dame freshman scoring record. Last night broke the ACC freshman scoring record, passing the 660-point mark. And just plays with a passion and energy that changes the outcome of an entire game. She's got an infectious personality around there. South Bend's used to having star players. We've seen it over the years between Skylar Diggins when I was in school, Jewel Lloyd, Arike Ngumbawale, all these great names, and they have stumbled onto yet another incredible young woman who's going to go out here and be the face of college basketball soon. I saw LaChina Robinson tweet it last night. Put Notre Dame on as many national games as you can in the next 3 years, because you've got the next college basketball superstar, both in production and in personality, who's ready for the moment.
I think the WNBA could
you do. I mean, between her...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Emerson, but between her and Juju Watkins, again, USC is sitting at number 7 in the country. Juju Watkins, a freshman as well, a 6'2" freshman. So these are two players and two teams certainly to keep an eye on.
I mean, I think the WNBA could be that league that benefits most from NIL, like right now, because you had players in the past like Maya Moore, Candace Parker. The name recognition wasn't there for them, but you have young stars like Hidalgo here, and also Caitlyn Clark, they're big names to enter the league because they're basically able to reach an audience broader than sports because of NIL here, which could help take the WNBA to that next financial tier over the years.
Well, I think it's about platforming too, right? Yeah. We've seen more of these games winding up on ABC and E1, and we've seen the numbers and the ratings that have been done in the women's tournament when this has gone on. You've seen compelling characters like Angel Reese and the back and forth between her and Caitlyn Clark as LSU won the title last year. A sport where only the coaches, and this has been true of a lot of college sports, where only the coaches for so long were allowed to be the stars and mainstays. But women's basketball's got a couple of things that work in its favor, and one of them is you've always been more inclined to have players stay in college for longer, and that gives you more time to get familiar with them. And now if you take that and you platform it the way that they've been recently, and people get to see them and get to know the names more, you're more inclined to take that next step and move to the next level with these women as they transition to the professional game that's been around there for a while and has a lot of those compelling names from yesteryear in women's college basketball. So a big congratulations to Caitlyn Clark, first and foremost, on her decision, on her career, and what she's been as a role model around college basketball. And best of luck at the next level, still counting fistfuls of cash from all of the advertising deals that will still absolutely be there for you when you get there. All right, very excited to welcome in Rex Chapman, who has a memoir out right now. It's Hard for Me to Live with Me. It's available now wherever you guys can get books. And a fascinating story for Rex. Some people, especially my age or younger, who might have met you through your online persona, through Block Charge on Twitter and all these things, to get to learn about, your not only exemplary basketball career, your time in Kentucky and in the NBA, but also some of your struggles off the court and the things that you've dealt with in your personal life. I'm curious for you, as you've gone through not only the process of writing this, but now going around and doing the book tour here, what it's been like having to go back and relive so much of this, not only in your past, but some of the pain that's been a part of it.
It's been hard. It was hard. It was a hard process, as I know both of you guys know, and especially you, Mike Senior, writing a book and that it's just kind of painful. You're telling about some of the most intimate parts of your life and some that aren't so flattering. Talking about it is maybe even tougher. I didn't know that I was forced to kind of remember some things. I think I had compartmentalized, and our generation, Mike Senior, this was not something you could talk about. Like, I always had, anxiety, and that was, if you say to someone you're depressed, what? Get out of it. What do you have to be depressed about? Get over it. Shut up. That's not tough. Be tougher. So, you just get hardwired from a really young, or I got hardwired from a really young age to just not talk about any of the feelings I was ever having really with anyone. I played basketball all the time. And so when I wasn't playing basketball, I was eating or sleeping. And I just got where, like we all do as athletes, you can kind of get caught and swept up in it. And because I was playing basketball all the time, and I guess I was, pretty good at it, people thought, well, that's great. Look, he loves it. He's obsessed by it, that kind of thing, which also you have to kind of be that way to become a professional athlete. I was Shawn Johnson, the gymnast. I interviewed her a couple of years ago, and she was fascinating, Olympic gymnast. And she said something that stayed with me. She said, Rex, every person that ever tries to do something great sacrifices a little bit of sanity. And I thought, wow, that's definitely true, because it's uncommon as athletes to get your head beat in every day as a freshman and keep going back and getting your ass kicked over and over. And please, may I have more, until most people, I think, just stop. And to be committed to just competing and learning how to compete every day is hard.
So, and you're right. Our generation, we kept everything in. We were just tough it out yourself. Don't talk to anybody. Just deal with it. So, in a way, while this was hard to do, to put it out into words, was it cathartic at all?
I'm starting to get it. I over the last, this book coming out it's just been, again, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard on me, but my family, these are old wounds. My ex-wife and my children, our children, who are all adults now, she raised them. She's a rock star. She raised them. I played with them. So it's bringing back a bunch of memories for them. I've just moved back to Phoenix. My son Zeke's on the staff with the Suns, and a couple of our girls are there. And I'm dropping a big emotional bomb right back into their literal backyard again. So I just need to acknowledge that it's not easy on my parents, on my sister, who, my sister came to my rescue at my lowest moment. And she and I have not always been the tightest of siblings. She was there for me, took me in, let me live with her. My cousin, I could go down the list, and then tons of family and friends. I just, I let down so many people. I let down myself, but reconciling yourself to acknowledging that you are a thief. It's hard. Sorry. It's hard to say that. Like, so I always go back to, I mean, it had to be the drugs. You knew me, Mike. I was not, I was an upstanding guy. I may have had my problems. I may have pushed the boundaries of fun, but I never did anything illegal ever. And, I didn't have, I wasn't pulled over, no drunk driving, no, I've never had a problem in my life. That happened. And so now I have to kind of think about it. It had to be the drugs. If not, I go straight to, well, then you're just a bad person. And I don't feel like I'm a bad person. And I just don't. And I have so many great friends and people that I do know are good people. They like me. So that heartens me and makes me think I'm not so bad sometimes.
As you've reckoned with these things for yourself and gone through, like you said, the work and the catharsis for you personally, as you put this out into the world for other people that aren't in your immediate family and friend group there, what are you hoping they get out of reading through this?
Anything really. I can, I can remember my low points, and this is in the book. And, I was in rehab. I'm hoping people get something out of it that can relate, especially addicts, or people with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, people with ADD, dyslexia. I didn't know I had dyslexia most of my life until a couple of years ago. And a lot of things made more sense now. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm hoping that so in the book, I was in rehab. I was fresh out of detox. It took me about 7 days to get out, which it does every single time I've been in, because the opioids just won't get out of your system. And apparently it's like a heroin, detox, which it's just not fun. And so once it's over, you kind of start feeling emotions and whatnot again. And right out of detox, I had a visitor, and I was in rehab in Louisville, Kentucky. And I went into the room, and it was Rick Pitino. And Rick is a longtime friend, and he and Vinny Tatum, an assistant of his and a good friend of mine. And when I saw him, I just burst into tears. And, I was sobbing, and just, they probably couldn't understand what I was saying, but I was saying I'm toxic. I'm ruined. I've ruined my kids and my family and my parents and everybody that, has always looked up to me, my friends and their kids. That's all that's going through my head. And Rick said, "Rex, stop, listen." And this is Rick's been through his share of stuff. And he said, "You're going to eat a lot of for a while." Yes, that's true. He said, "But as long as you do the next right thing," he said, "it's going to be like a big beach ball sized ball." He said, "And then if you do the next right thing, it's going to be a basketball, and another right thing, it's going to be a volleyball, softball, baseball, ping pong ball, golf ball, ping pong ball. And then one day it'll just be a pebble where when people see you, that's not what they immediately think of. And for whatever reason, it resonated, and what am I going to do? If I'm going to live, I got to try. And if I'm going to try, I may as well really try." And so, there was really only, and I had to show my kids a better way, and my ex-wife a better way, my ex-wife, Bridget, and my family, my friends, everybody, and show myself a different way.
While this is obviously an issue inside of sports and outside of sports, sticking to the inside of sports part, every generation has its different issues, right? No doubt about that. We're in a generation where people do talk a little more and a little more open, unlike our generation. So do you think from that standpoint of your issues that it could be easier, might not be the best words, or for athletes of today because they're more open and honest about things, or at least express things to others, that they could help themselves more today?
Man, I really think so. And I'll relate. I think you guys will relate to this. So, well, I know you will. So when we were growing up, Mike Senior, the you know, the media wasn't like it is. And you saw your sports heroes, and they had this image. And if they got in trouble, you know, their image is ruined. You know, or if they say something or do something. I remember just being fascinated as a kid. And when I say this, I don't know exactly how old Art is, but when I was, say, 12, the best thing in America was Art Schlichter. He was the quarterback for Ohio State University. And I lived in Kentucky, and Art was everybody's Mr. All-American. And I loved him. And he got out of college, and it was he got out of college, and, his life went haywire. He gambling problems, drug problems, in and out of prison. And I just remember thinking, can't stop gambling? What are you talking about? Me saying that is funny, but what are you talking about? And but guys, how beneficial would that have been for someone like me or you guys to know, if Art Schlichter had a podcast during that time, to be able to articulate what was going on would have been beneficial to someone like myself for sure, because I had this image that, man, you can't mess up. And, I also thought everybody that did it like you, that had that career that, that you want to write that memoir. You don't want to write this memoir. You set out to have a great career, and that's it. This wasn't planned in any way. And this is not the book I wanted to write, but I do think it'll help, because I do think people talk more now than they did.
You mentioned that side of it where there's that positive where players of today and people of today may be more open in talking about these things. One other thing that you talked about a lot in the book, though, was when you were a college athlete, all of the stressors and pressure that came with that, and the amount of eyes that were on you all the time moving around on campus, being the level of player that you were at that kind of place. And I think about the world now where so many of these players constantly have eyes on them through social media, through every phone that's available to them all around campus. And I wonder, as someone now that's, covered the game in its modern form and sees all these changes between NIL money and the transfer portal and the added eyes on all these players, how you view the state of the current athlete with the things they have to handle in that way.
I don't know how they do it. I'd have been in jail, I'm sure, but all the and videos and all. I mean, it was different back then. I don't know how they do it. There's a lot of pressure on them to be perfect, and none of us are perfect. We're going to say the wrong thing. We're going to do the wrong thing. These are young people to be scrutinized like they are. And now we're in such a point where at least all they asked me about was basketball or sports, Now these guys are asked about politics and stuff they don't, come on, you're just putting them in a bad spot. So I think I can't imagine doing it today. If I had one thing that I could have implemented when I was in school, when we were in school, Mike, that would have, really helped. I wish I could have been able to see a therapist in college when I was 18 years old. I mean, and when I think about it, it
Understood. Do you think?
One sec.
Do you think Yeah,
when
no problem.
It just, that part of my life was really formative. And when I go back sometimes and get to this spot, it's really hard, but it's important for me to feel and get through it and not run to the racetrack and get involved in the form for 7 hours and, go chase that girl or go do something to distract me from my bad feelings. So thanks for bearing with me for a sec.
No problem at all. How, also in an era, and this would happen like when in the NFL, they would have a rookie symposium and they would bring in a vet to talk to the rookies. And a lot of times, some rookies would listen And some, if you're just looking out there, are just tuning you out, right? So
Yes.
if you're in that position now, which I'm sure you've spoken in front of a number of people, but if you were doing that for athletes, young athletes, and they were all paying attention to you, which we hope they would, what's the biggest message Rex Chapman could give them?
Pay attention. You will not play long. You will not play long, no matter if you're here, if you're in college, you're going to play 4 years tops, 5 if you're there. If you go on and play professionally, okay, let's say you're great and you play 10 or 12 years. You're 32 years old and you got another 50 or 60 or 70 years to live. Better pay attention to what the people who have had success doing it before you did. Because I was that guy, Mike. Yeah, I'm sure you were there, right up front, listening to everything. And I was furious. We had to spend 45 minutes in here, a mandatory meeting, and I have to go play golf. I have to. I can't believe you guys are keeping us for this bull, is what I thought. So, and that was it. And you guys know there's half of the locker room, if not more, is that way.
Yep, it's very true, and you're right in that. I hope more and more people going through that now are noticing and are taking stock of the experience of others. And I'm heartened by some of what we've seen from a lot of young athletes today, guys and gals figuring out a lot sooner, but it certainly always bears repeating that you can learn a lot if you've just got the willingness to learn a lot with the people that are stepping forward with a lot of this information. So, Rex, with that in mind, we appreciate everything you've given us today. Again, the memoir is It's Hard for Me to Live with Me. It's available now, documenting Rex Chapman's journey from being a basketball star in high school and college at Kentucky and in the NBA to your battles with gambling addiction, substance, and subsequently finding your way back to this point. We can't thank you enough for sharing all of that with us and with the readers, man. We hope it all goes well for you.
Thanks, fellas. Love you. Love your family. Beautiful people.
Dan, I think that's one thing we've talked a lot about, and we mentioned it there with modern athletes now. And we mentioned it with Victor Wembanyama this morning. I do think that's one of the most heartening things about him is he seems to understand all of the help that's available to him as a young player who is supposed to be a superstar and is supposed to be in all of the rooms that Rex was in early in his life as a young player growing up in Kentucky, this basketball mecca who was destined to go be a great star at this school, that you get young players like Victor who are a lot more inclined to bend their ear to make sure they're listening to the game coming from these guys that have been around and seen the things that are coming their way to help them make sure they don't step on some of the same landmines that they did.
Yeah, I think that's one of the many differences, or one of the biggest differences of generations that we talked about, is the avenues of help today and those players that go for that help, that seek that help, and that speak out to an era that, as I said, Rex and I were in, where you just kept everything bottled in. The toughest thing for me to hear in that, and imagine a lot of it's because I have a family of my own, is, and I didn't even really think about that, as he's laying out his life for everybody to read. I mean, this opening old wounds for his family. I mean, this destroyed his family. He's got kids, he's got grandkids, he's got an ex-wife, and talking about how it now they have to relive it again. They already lived it once, and now this book comes out, and they're going to have to, that's part of it as well, as he goes through it, but they go through it again as well. That's got to be very, very tough on not only the family, but certainly Rex mentally to know that he's doing that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of the thought process when you start going through all of this. I mean, getting to the point now where he's on the book tour is one thing, but he's been doing this and having to get all this together, and I'm sure talk to a lot of these people in the process of gathering all the information in this book and getting everyone's perspective. So an arduous journey, a fascinating one. I've gotten to read some of the book, and it's everything about the trappings of fame that you would expect for a star athlete going through these growing pains themselves.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, everybody, where it is time now for Cash It or Trash It. It is presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code GOJO, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for more details. So the Philadelphia 76ers here, Gojo, currently in a logjam in the middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference playoff race. However, they have some reinforcements coming soon as Joel Embiid, speaking for the first time since he was injured back on January 30th.
The same reason why I was pushing the last couple of games. I just love playing basketball. I want to be on the floor as much as possible. I only have about 20 years to do this, so any chances that I get, I want to be on the floor. So it doesn't matter where we are. I don't know, 4, 5, 3, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It doesn't really matter where we are. Just want to play as much as we can and try to help us.
Gentlemen, Philly currently plus 950 to win the East on the DK Sportsbook. That is the 5th best odds on the board there. If, and that's a big if, Gojo, Embiid can come back and contribute, you cashing or trashing those odds?
I am probably going to trash those odds.
Good
and
call.
while we've seen even recently without Joel Embiid out there, the Tyrese Maxey-led 76ers certainly have enough energy to be feisty and be a tough out for people. Dad, I just think where we're situated in the Eastern Conference right now, and Emerson kind of mentioned it, there's a couple of tiers. There's the Boston Celtics and everybody else right now who are 8 games up on the second place Cavs. There's the Cavs in Milwaukee that are knotted at the 2-3 spot, 8 games back east. And then there's the Knicks, Sixers, Orlando Magic, and Pacers that are all right there with the Miami Heat as well, from the 4 seed down to the 9 seed that are only separated by about a game and a half. And when I look at that logjam down the stretch, and I say, if I'm the 76ers and I am a team that is potentially going to get my sun and moon reinserted into the lineup, the gravity of Joel Embiid changes so much about how you play basketball if you're the 76ers. And he's coming back not on the same footing that we had him at before, with now injuries to both both legs during this season. If he's coming back to that point, the last teams on earth I want to see are teams like the Knicks and the Miami Heat, who are going to make everything into this brutal slugfest of a basketball game and make life really difficult for a team whose best player would be coming back late and partially injured. So I would trash this ticket. What about you?
No, I'm trashing it as well. I mean, such hope for this team. First there was a hope, can Tyrese Maxey be the guy once Harden leaves, and Maxey has been doing a great job, but you can't lose Joel Embiid. Again, he got the procedure done, and he was going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. That's next Tuesday. That's when he gets reevaluated, not when he comes back. That's when he gets reevaluated. So whenever you're talking about a lower body injury for a big man, and then a lower body injury where you're trying to come back, where you not only have to heal that injury, but then you have to get going from the cardiovascular and game shape state again for a big man. That's tough. It's not like when he first comes back, he's going to be the Joel Embiid of old. That's not just going to happen. It's going to take a while. So, and as you mentioned in the standings, they could be in the play-ins. They're that close to dropping out of the automatics in the top 6. So, yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen for him this year. The clock is certainly ticking on the 76ers with Embiid in the team they're putting around him. But it does seem to be the Celtics conference right now. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm trashing this one.
Yeah, I just think, and it's unfortunate, Dad, that this has kind of been, as we've had conversations about the Philadelphia 76ers for years now and what they've put around Joel Embiid and the failed Ben Simmons experiment and the bad playoff runs here. While there is certainly a lot of it that goes to, hey, we don't always feel like Philly's had the best handle on who their roster is around Joel Embiid in terms of that other superstar, the failed stuff with James Harden, all the different iterations that we've seen. But how many seasons now have we seen for Philadelphia really go down the drain? Because at the end of the year, either in the postseason or earlier on in the season, Joel Embiid's body, unfortunately, just continues to let him down at certain junctures like this. And he's played through it admirably in certain situations before. But at the end of the day, the amount of seasons where Joel Embiid injury has been part of the headline that ultimately leads to the 76ers, it does make you wonder not about, their future without Joel Embiid, but how they really have to think about structuring this team without him. Because Tyrese Maxey's great, and I get why they wanted to hold on to him. He's awesome for that team. Tobias Harris, I think, is coming up on the end of the 5-year deal he signed a while back and has been great for them this season. But none of those guys are good enough to shoulder the load in a way that allows you to take the night in, night out pounding off of Joel Embiid's shoulders, who has been in the conversation for the best basketball player on the planet for the last handful of years. And so I wonder how big they've got to swing now, Dad, because it seems that if your plan is we're going to ride Joel Embiid till the wheels fall off and let him be our engine for the entire season, that unfortunately that train runs out of gas by the time you get into the year more often than not.
Yeah, and because you have a core in Boston that's going to be together. You have, the Damian Lillard trade to Milwaukee. We'll get time to season a little bit as he stays there. So you don't see that team really backsliding at all. So you're right. What is put on Joel Embiid, to lead this team and to your point, to make it through a regular season and then, oh, by the way, make a playoff run. We mentioned Ben Simmons there. We mentioned James Harden there. Remember, it seems like a long time ago, or maybe people even forgot. Remember when Jimmy Butler was there? Jimmy Butler was there in part of the 18-19 season coming over from Minnesota. I mean, I almost forgot about that, of players they have rolled in there to try and say, we need to get this thing done. So, yeah, I don't know what the future is going to hold there and what they're going to be able to put around Joel Embiid to compete in the East right now.
I do wonder, whenever we do the retrospective on this era of 76ers basketball, and it overlaps some, like with the process era 76ers, that Joel was certainly a part of at the beginning, but we've kind of waved by to since then. But as we look back as the most important move in the juncture of any two franchises in the last half decade of basketball, if that one move in Philadelphia choosing not to retain Jimmy Butler, letting a guy walk who got the vibe with him and Joel Embiid. They both talked so glowingly about the other before, during, and after that time. And then, listen, I mean, one of the bigger swings and misses by me take-wise, Jimmy Butler going down to Miami and saying, oh, no, you can't have a team where Jimmy Butler is your best player, be a perennial contender. That's not, you don't get to build around that guy. And all the Miami Heat have said is, okay, sure, and gone to Eastern Conference Finals and had NBA Finals appearances as recently as last year. Like, what Jimmy Butler has done there, both on and off the court, is now a country music star with Fall Out Boy, has been nothing short of exemplary, but it's a reminder of, you're exactly right, what the 76ers had in their building and let leave, and now watching what he's done since, I'd have to imagine that place is cloaked in regret.
Yeah, I would think so as well. And as we keep saying, looking toward the future, because as we said, we both trash that for this year winning the East, and we talk about Boston, we talk about Milwaukee, but has Cleveland passed them by? Have the Knicks passed them by? Even when Embiid comes back, those two teams, you got a couple of teams elevating themselves in the East. We talked about the Celtics, the Bucks, and the 76ers as the top three. Well, we know how the 76ers have fallen without Embiid, but we see the rise of Cleveland. We see the rise of the Knicks, so there are other teams jumping into the fray.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at all those teams too, again, the way that they can make life difficult for them in terms of points per game allowed. Cleveland, second in the league. Miami, third in the league. The Knicks, fourth in the league. Like, they are teams that pride themselves, and this isn't surprising given the coaches at the helm with some of these. When you think of Tibbs in New York, they've built a team in his grind set likeness that wants to go out there and batter and bruise you. And again, I go back to the original point is, if you've got teams full of bruisers like them, like the Miami Heat, who want to turn the game into a physical rock fight, that's not the place I want my injured big coming back into and being expected to compete with in the most critical juncture. And to Joel's credit, he said, no matter what our standing is, no matter what the record is, I'm coming back if I'm physically able to, and his hope is that he can do that before the end of the regular season. That's admirable for Joel Embiid. That's incredible from him, and he's always been, like we've said, everything you want a Philadelphia athlete to be. Unfortunately, it just seems like that's not going to include champion anytime soon, and that's where the rubber really meets the road. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., hoping to talk to Buccaneers linebacker and pending free agent and Super Bowl champion Lavonte David here in just a couple of minutes as he gets set to potentially see life away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after 12 years and a Super Bowl victory down there. Also would love to get some of his recollections on what these guys are going through at the Combine right now. His dad, for anyone watching or listening to us live, is probably also seeing the pictures of Sam Hartman start to hit the timeline right now as the quarterbacks have shown up today. The NFL is down so collectively bad right now for our sweet, sweet former Notre Dame son who's making waves with the hair in all the ways that we expected, right? He's going in and being the best looking guy at the Combine, trying to also see if he can make someone's roster better. But man, the thirsty tweets and texts that I am getting as he gets to the podium this morning are unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a guy that wants his play to outdo the talk about his looks for sure. That's because he's a football player. It's what he wants to do. But boy, it's tough to get around it. He's never going to get around it, right? I mean, he's always going to get the tweets, the thirst tweets for him. It's not a bad position to be in at all.
No, and you know what? He did the smart thing at the podium. They asked him about the hair. He said, I've got a great mom and great genes. So shout out to his mom, Lisa, who we both got to meet, who does actually have exemplary hair as well. So not surprising, the apple. And where it fell into your point, Sam's a great football player. And going back to watch Joe Alt and Audric Estime, there are so many throws that pop from Sam. He's another guy, as we talked about the Brock Purdy-fication of the NFL, where people might all of a sudden say, hey, maybe we'll give a guy that's a more veteran, seasoned player a look because of the amount of football they've seen, because of how high the floor is. I think Sam's certainly someone who is a candidate for that with the amount of quality, high-level football that guy's played throughout his career, the big throws, some of the big moments. There's certainly not going to be anything you can put on his plate that'll phase him. He internalized a whole new offense this year. So a guy that's really easy to root for given what we've gotten to know from him, and someone that I think, given what we've seen, is a little bit maybe the start of a trend, is going to have a shot to help make somebody better, as is Saquon Barkley, Dad. We're getting into some rumors as we get into and close to NFL free agency and the things coming up here, and we heard all the other day about the running backs in this market. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, a number of these guys that wouldn't be tagged by their current team, that would explore longer-term deals, but that could be doing a bit of a game of running back musical chairs right now. And one of the rumors that started to pop up yesterday was about the potential of Saquon Barkley heading to the Houston Texans. And I know your eyes kind of lit up, Dad, when you thought about that combination.
Oh, I think it's a great fit. You have an up-and-coming team that surprised everybody in making the playoffs. Their arrow is firmly pointed in the up position to continue to make moves with the young players and coaches that have worked well for them. So now you continue to build around. You've got a hell of a young quarterback who is, as we keep talking about this is something that keeps coming back, is on that rookie pay contract right now. So this is the time you can build. Now, Saquon Barkley, if you get him, isn't going to cost you a lot of money. Unfortunately, the market for running backs didn't all of a sudden go to $20 million a year. That's not going to happen. So he's certainly a number you can fit into the cap. Their leading rusher last year, Devin Singletary, he's a free agent as well. Under 1,000 yards, had 30 receptions. Saquon could improve both those positions extremely well. I think that would be a monster pickup. We talk about going, players, established players going to contending teams. This is a team on the rise. This is a team on the rise in a division that really isn't dominated by anybody, right? So, I mean, they can continue that rise up with talent they now put around the young players that have really blossomed for them.
Yeah, Emerson, cover your ears right now as the Jacksonville Jaguars and the rest of that division, unfortunately, probably going to be looking up at the Houston Texans for a little while here. And, Dad, you're right. This is the ultimate in sex sells, right? When you've got a quarterback the caliber of C.J. Stroud who showed in year one the kind of juice that really, I mean, outside of Joe Burrow, we haven't really seen from a top overall pick in terms of not only being incredible in his own individual performance, but the way he lifted that team. Yeah, I'm sure for a lot of the running backs in the current market, I do wonder if this will be the trend where, hey, we might not be getting the paydays that we want anymore. But, man, the opportunity to go and join a team like this that does have an upward trajectory, not just for now, but for the immediate future. And for a guy in Saquon Barkley that is on the younger side, even if his body's betrayed him at a couple of stops along the way already during his Giants career, I think that could be fascinating. Dad, do you think there's anything that changes in terms of the nature of these guys' deals with this? Because the one thing I was thinking about was, Man, if I'm Saquon Barkley or any of these running backs and I'm being told by the marketplace, hey, we don't want you as a bell cow anymore. We don't believe that. We think we can bundle running backs and do the committee thing here, and your contract's going to reflect that. You think there's anything in terms of protections that these guys could start to get in their deals that could at least make this reality a little bit more palatable?
I don't think anything they can get written in. No, because if they're not going to get the big money, even if they're touching the ball a lot, do they want to continue doing that and shorten their career by touching the ball a lot? I mean, if I sign a guy, I'm going to use him. If Saquon Barkley is on my team, I'm going to run him and I'm going to throw passes to him. And if Saquon has to settle for a deal he doesn't really like, does he want to have, high 200s or 300s in touches? Probably doesn't want to break his body down like that. But how are you going to get that into a contract? You're not going to get anything written into a contract for protection against the amount of time you play. It's always for the amount of time you play is a positive of getting more money. So no, I don't think there's anything from a contract standpoint that will put these running backs in a better position. They're just in a bad position right now from their position and what they can make, and they're just going to have to try and get the best deals they can get.
I know, because that was my thought process. Was you're right. We have playing time incentives and bonuses all the time. It'd be very difficult and precedent setting in a way I'm sure most owners would, definitely not collude, but kind of collude a little bit on the idea that, hey, if we wanted to build in there, if I was a running back and an agent, I'm saying, all right, you don't think I'm worth bell cow money, then I want protection against that. I want tiers in this where if I'm above a certain amount of touches, you're going to have to pay me for those touches here, because why am I going to go out here and destroy my body requisite for a paycheck that I'm not getting when you won't want to pay up to it? I think that would be an interesting option for them to explore. But again, to your point, unfortunately, they don't hold a lot of ammunition right now in going to the table and trying to make something like that happen.
Probably the team I'm most interested in what they do at running back is Baltimore, because we talked about how they led the league in rushing last year, a lot to do with Lamar, but Gus Edwards is a free agent. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent, but the guy has been hurt the last 3 years, so I don't know what that means for him on the free agent market, but a free agent nonetheless. So what does Baltimore do? Do they get one of these, a Derrick Henry, a Saquon Barkley, or one of the go after a Josh Jacobs, who I think will still end up with the Raiders, to try and keep that running attack going as they have free agents that may exit that team?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch there. Unfortunately, it seems like we're not going to get to connect with Lavonte David at this point today, which is a shame, Dad, because the one thing I was curious about talking with him about his status, he's 33 years old right now, potentially going to enter the free agent pool at linebacker. And when you look at the guys in there, and we talk about running back as this position that's in a bit of a crossroads right now, I think linebacker's in a really interesting spot as well, given where the league is going. It's gotten light and fast at that spot. We saw a lot of teams get punished for that last year. And as we look up and see guys in the combine all south of 240 pounds, most of them south of 230 pounds, and the names popping up in free agency like Frankie Louvu from the Panthers, Lavonte himself, Patrick Queen from the Baltimore Ravens, Jordan Brooks from the Seahawks, Bobby Wagner, they're either older names or guys that don't necessarily resemble the linebackers of old in a year where we're getting ready to watch Patrick freaking Willis go into the Hall of Fame. I do wonder what the future trajectory for this position looks like, because we saw plenty of teams, the Philadelphia Eagles, absolutely decimated for not addressing it properly during the offseason.
Yeah, no, your guy's been in the league 12 years. Tampa Bay, his only team, has pretty much accomplished it all. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been on an all-pro team, won a Super Bowl. He's done about everything you can do in college, two-time All-American, and in the NFL. So as we always talk about with free agents, what's on his mind? What does he want? I don't know if a big payday is in it after 12 years in the league. Are you comfortable in Tampa Bay, who has a lot of free agents out there, or you're looking for a new adventure and doesn't want to be with a contending team? Only Lavonte David knows, what's going on in his mind about what's going to be next in his future.
Trying to read the minds of athletes is almost always a losing effort. But coming up next, I will present to you the most secretive athlete we maybe have ever seen in the modern era. Next here on GoJo and Golic. All right, fellas, time to finish off the week the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the weekend. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, and the best of GoJo and Golic, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio each and every day during the week. Or if you miss any of us live or our great guest, thanks to Rex Chapman for stopping by today to talk about his book, his life, and his career with us. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts or available right here on YouTube as soon as we get done. And fellas, I present to you for this, the most secretive athlete of our time. I thought Mike Trout, as far as a superstar player who really gave us nothing in terms of personality or information, was going to be the zenith of this. In a day and age in pro sport where everyone's got social media, we know so much, there's players with podcasts, player empowerment, all of it out here. I present to you Shohei Ohtani, shock dropping his marriage, not only on us on the outside world, but apparently to Dave Roberts, the Dodgers, and everybody else associated with that organization. Shohei Ohtani went on to say that she is a Japanese woman, and I don't really feel comfortable talking about when I got married exactly, but she is a normal Japanese woman. Guys, Dad, what do you make of Shohei Ohtani talking about his now wife the same way kids in middle school used to make up their girlfriend that's definitely real but goes to another school and you just wouldn't know her?
I mean, this is classic Shohei, right? You don't know anything about the guy, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. We saw him with his dog. Everybody wanted to know about his dog, who he calls Decoy. We start finding out about his dog. Nobody knew about this, as you said, not even the team he played for. So I guess not shocking to be shocked by an announcement of Shohei Ohtani and what he is doing. As he wrote, he said, with he and his wife and the dog, we hope the two of us and one animal will work together. Not the line you normally read after, a wedding and an animal involved. We hope the two of us and one animal will work together. Okay. Congrats to the fine young couple. I hope they have a long, happy life together.
He says he's known her for 3 to 4 years. I'm just like, don't you know exactly how long you've known her for? I said there is
he doesn't want to let us know how long he's known her for. That's the whole point. He's going to give us like a range and an idea for everything, but never any specifics, because then we can know his next move, and he never wants us to know his next move.
I don't think there is a wife. He's married to the game. There is no wife.
He does seem deeply grind set. I mean, he's like deferring the salary till later on, barely acknowledging the existence of anything remotely resembling a personal or family life here. The guy is so grind set oriented here. Dodgers fans got to be thrilled about that. I, for one, can't wait until he shocks drops an entire body cover full of tattoos on us. Like you saw all the baseball shots there. He's got the arm sleeve. He's got the right coverage. At some point, it's just going to be Shohei pops the top for some reason, and it'll be carefully calculated when he does. Just covered head to toe in tattoos would be a next sick stanza of stuff that he could drop on us from nowhere.
Yeah, I'm in on that.
I'm not sure that one's coming, be honest with you.
I don't know. Have you seen him shirtless, buddy?
I can't say that I have, so I guess I'm just surmising.
Just like you've never seen a baby pigeon.
See?
Oh, God.
Open your third eye, sheeple. It's time to walk into the light. Speaking of conspiracies, Emerson, apparently there are conspiracies around video that surfaced yesterday of one Thomas Edward Patrick Brady besting his 40 time from the combine, allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
So Tom Brady, he runs faster now, a faster 40 at 46 than he did at 22. Everybody knows the electric, famous picture of him with his doughboy body. 22 at the NFL Combine. He clocked a not-so 5.28 second 40-yard dash. 2.5 decades later, he has improved his time to 5.12 seconds. And yes, because we know all of the fun, fake videos that he and his team have put out there over the years, there are people on the internet, and we all know everyone on the internet is very reasonable, that they believe that this is fake. He did not run a faster 40. All right? What do you think, GoJo? Do you believe that this is real? And at 46, he is running a faster 40 than he did at 22.
So I can absolutely believe this just because, as one of my buddies put it, there are no ugly people. There are just people without the means. Like Tom Brady has throughout his career as a star just gotten better looking over time. We've watched every time they do that face morph with Tom Brady over his career. Yeah. It's horrifying because you watch this man Benjamin Button into one of the best looking men on planet Earth. So yeah, Dad, I absolutely believe through all the weird pliability and actually caring about what he eats and not being a drunk college student in Michigan, that yeah, he's probably a better version of himself now physically because he didn't set the bar high early on here. It's like when guys would potentially fudge their baseline concussion test so that later on when they have to pass it under duress, they're in a better position to do so. Right. That's really all Tom did with this first 40.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was his thought process, is I'm going to run a slow 40 at the combine, so I could be taken in the 6th round and have this incredible story. Chess, not checkers, right?
It's the script. It was the script, Senior. It was the script.
I believe this. I mean, let's remember, he hasn't been retired for 10 years. He's just been out of the game, so he's been training, and guys train way better than they used to than even when he came into the league. There's more known about nutrition and weight training and all kinds of training in season and in off season. So, and this guy has kept himself in great shape. And again, he just finished playing. So I absolutely believe he ran a faster 40.
Gentlemen, right now, how different would your 40s be from when you ran it in college?
Me and Brandon went and ran the 40s at the Super Bowl experience in Phoenix 2 years ago. And I ran, Dad, when you're young, you run with nothing but freedom on your mind. You run with force and effort and all these things. When you're 34 doing it, I ran with fear the entire time that one of my hamstrings was just going to explode underneath me, and I was going to have to limp back down to Radio Row and explain to my peers, yes, I'm going to be on IR for a little bit. I blew out my hamstring running the 40 at the Super Bowl experience. Like, I'm sorry, my biggest fear in life, now that I have left sports in the rear view, is an adult injury. So you couldn't pay me to max effort at 40. Well, actually, you could. You pay me to do pretty much anything. But you would have to pay me a good amount of money to run a max effort 40 at this point.
Listen, the words I live by right now, especially when me and your mother go play pickleball, is don't fall down. Back in the day when you dive for a shot, now I ain't gonna. I'm not falling down. I'm not putting myself in harm's way. So I'm with you. I could not let it go on a 40-yard dash. I just could not just all-out sprint this thing at 61 years old if I didn't train a little bit for it, because I'd be scared to death of a hammy, a knee. I already have to get my left knee replaced. That would be the end of that, and have to go do it, get carried right from the field to the operating room to get it replaced. I couldn't feel comfortable enough letting it all go, knowing the damage I would do to my body.
The Life Alert pendant for my dad's next coming birthday, collision course. Speaking of people that need Life Alert right now, Emerson, let's get to the third here. A very horrifying development for the Philadelphia Phillies ballpark experience.
Speaking of doing damage to your body here, after 27 years, the run of 27 years, the Phillies are discontinuing their popular Dollar Dog Night promotion. The team said yesterday in a release, it's part because of unruly fan behavior. This comes after an April game last year against the Marlins. Several fans were it was a food fight. It was a massive food fight in the stands here. But they are going to offer a buy one, get one free deal, which something tells me with the fans of Philadelphia, that will not stop them from causing and starting another food fight.
No.
I was just going to say, how is a Philadelphia organization surprised that fans are acting up here? This is a travesty, Dad.
Yeah, listen, the Rangers sell dollar dogs every Wednesday at home games. Minnesota have a dollar dog deal each Tuesday at home games. So it's still done out there. It is, but it's not shocking that it's Philadelphia fans that are causing some kind of ruckus. And the best thing you do in a ruckus is you take advantage of the situation and monetize it. So, of course, T-shirts have been made lamenting the decision with the inscription, RIP Dollar Dog Night, pork flu, heads rolled.
Oh my God.
I love that.
It's a sad state of affairs. As someone who lived through the fiasco at the Notre Dame Student Center when they upped the price of quarter dogs to 33-cent dogs on a bunch of drunk college kids, we did not stand for it, and I'd imagine Philadelphia will not stand for it. If you want to join the fight, download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating. Thanks so much and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.